I didn't know like Bye, thanks. Yeah, it's just really good learning a lot about how like state legislation happens because like a lot of the things that I think students want to see implemented happen at a state level and like we're and another thing that I learned is like our job is not necessarily to do the work, it's just more to advocate for the work. Which kind of was like, okay, I get it now. Because like sometimes I'm like, oh, like I have so many ideas, but like, how do I get it
How
done?
do I get it
But
done?
that's not my job,
Right.
necessarily.
Yeah. Your job is to have that good ideas and then find somebody to do the work by advocating for the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good. I know that's like something so simple to know, but like I was like, no, I had a whole different
Yeah.
idea of how it went down.
So the session's been good. Have you gone to the sessions?
They have been, but as I mentioned, just more of the advocacy is just like it's literally just advocating. So I think my question is still left unanswered as far as like how do like I and then another thing is keeping in mind that sometimes like the things that we propose aren't gonna get done within our term. So that's kind of like just kind of like understanding the timeline of things. I think I kind of wanted a better idea of that and just like the breakdown of how like the system actually works. Like because they said like our chancellor or like our assembly member of our region would represent us at the state level.
Yeah.
But as you know, we have like religions, so it's like how can we so transparent to the students to know reach out to your assemblies, and we don't have our second need. So how do we?
Welcome to the last workshop of the day. My name is Jerry Reyes. I'm the Legislative Affairs Director for Region 5. I'm part of the Student Center for California Community Colleges. This session is called Navigating the Boardroom, a Student's Guide to Effective Advocacy. And we have a panel today, which I'll introduce. Alexi Cordova is Student Trustee from the Los Angeles Community College District. Everyone give them a round of applause. Next, we have Andrea Hoffman, Trustee, Los Angeles Community College District. And our moderator, Nguyen Garipian, Senior Policy Advocate, part of the Community College League of California. And the floor is yours.
All right. No, this is on this one. This one. Okay, so hello everybody. We're gonna start off with doing just a really quick round of short bios, just because these are our titles, but of course everybody has their own story to how they got to where they are. So my name is Nuna Garipian. I am with the Community College League of California. We are a statewide association that represents the trustees and CEOs slash presidents slash chancellors slash superintendents, whatever you want to call them, across the state for the community college system. I was also a former student trustee. I was a student trustee at Pasadena City College, where I served as a student trustee for 1 year. And after a year, I transferred over to Yale University, where I received my degree in political science. And right afterwards, made it to Sacramento, worked in the state capitol, and I joined the league about 2 years ago, working on advocacy. So I am technically a lobbyist. I represent the interests of community colleges within the state government based in Sacramento. So that's kind of who I am, and I'm really excited here to moderate a really important conversation between two leaders within the Los Angeles Community College District, which is the largest district not only in the state, but I learned in the country.
Yeah.
So that is insanity. So I'm going to pass it on for a quick introduction, and then we're going to go right into our questions.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm gonna save the best for last. I'm Andrea Hoffman. I am on the board of trustees for the Los Angeles Community College District. I was elected in 2015, so I'm the longest serving consecutive board member on that board. Yes. Thank you. I have a day job, and my day job is that I work at Glendale Community College, where I run the transfer center, the career center, and job placement. So I interact with students every single day. So I feel like I have a pretty good handle on what the student issues are, and I get to see students. And in my role as a board member, that really helps me a lot. And then I'm also the president of the trustee association or the trustee board for the Community College League of California, which is our professional association. And so there's a CEO board, CEOs, presidents, chancellors, whatever you want to call them, as Nune referred to. And they have a president, and I am the president of the trustee board. So I was elected president in May of 2023, and I serve until May of 2024. So I'm very proud to be able to represent students at a statewide level.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexi. I am the student trustee for the academic 2023-2024 year for the Los Angeles Community College District. This is my first position ever on student government, period. I've never been on ASG from my home campus. I just started at a community college a year ago. So I got really involved, and when everyone asked me, like, you have no ASG experience, like, what made you do this? And it was more so the fact that, like, just changing what affects us and things, being a student worker, like, hearing all these complaints and, like, knowing things that we need to get done to, like, enhance student life. I'm like, I want to be in that position. Like, I kind of want to jump over all the rest. So, as they mentioned, it's like one of the districts. I didn't even realize how powerful this position was until I actually sat in it. And with that said, it's just like whatever you do is iconic. You want to make changes, that's iconic. It doesn't matter what region, what district level, if you change legislation, if you advocate for change, you're iconic. So that is kind of how I got here. I haven't finished my associates yet. I'm still in the same like way. So I'm where all you guys are at now. So this is my great accomplishment. I just can't wait to continue to work with the SSCCC to hopefully change lives for community college students, even after the community. So yeah, thank you for having me here.
How many LACCBs, how many students from the Los Angeles Community College District are in the room? Raise your hand. Thank you for being
Oh,
here.
wow.
That's amazing.
All right.
We're going to get to, like, if you know who I am or not, if you recognize me.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. So our kind of goal with this session is to really have a candid conversation about who are the board of trustees, what they're just these like mystical figures that exist on your campus, like what do they do, what's their role, and of course as students, how do we leverage our relationships with these individuals and really become the strongest student advocates that we can be or you all can be. So to get started, simple essentials board of trustees 101. So really, Andrea and Alexi, how would you explain this? Who are the board of trustees and why are they important for student leaders?
That's a great question. So first of all, how many of you, raise your hand. First of all, raise your hand if you know how many trustees, elected trustees, not including the student trustee, represent your community college district. Okay. How many for you? Okay. What district are you? Okay, great. What district are you? Okay, excellent. Anybody else? I thought you had, yeah. 5. And what district are you? What district? Okay. Who can name all of the members of the board of trustees? Can anybody name them? Oh, I'm impressed. Okay, good. Oh, a bunch of you. Very good. Okay, okay. Question. How many student trustees do we have in there?
Right.
Okay,
That's why they can
got
name.
it. If
I
you
can
are not, yeah. If you are not the student trustee, how many of you know how many members of the board of trustees are on your board? Okay, good. How many of you who are not student trustees can name all of your board members, whether you have 5 or 7? Very good.
round of applause for that.
Of the ones that didn't raise their hands, how many of you can name one board member that's on your board of trustees? Okay, right. What district? Where? What college district? Okay. And who's the board member that you? Okay. Can you name an elected board member? Okay, no. All right. So board members are elected during the regular election. We have to run for our positions, and we're elected by the community, whether we're district based or at large. In the Los Angeles Community College District, board members are elected at large. Does everyone know what that means? That means we don't run from a specific district. In the Pasadena, for instance, Community College District, is there anyone here from Pasadena? Trustees run different areas. Mostly now, trustees are running in specified numbered districts or areas. Some are still running at large. So we are elected by the public to represent the community at large, the district, and the students. Go
And
ahead.
then my little takeaway from that is what I learned is that each trustee sits on a specific committee. So depending on what you want to get done, whether it's basic needs or curriculum, you would speak directly to them. So that is how you kind of one thing that I learned here at the advocacy Academy is that we don't make the changes, is that we advocate for the changes. So those are the people that you want to get connected with and make those connections. And the easiest way to do that is literally go to lunch with them. Like if you have a favorite place, you like to go to brunch with your girls, stick around a bit. Literally go with a board of trustees. They would love to sit down, talk to you about what they have the power to do, and they can even network with their connected associates that also have the power to get what you want. So that's kind of like my takeaway as far as like what the board members do
Mhm.
and their specific power and role, which I'm sure you all know, but that's just kind of like what I learned even being here. Because like I mentioned, I didn't really know the position until I got it, so it was a learning. So
And then, so you kind of mentioned this. What is within a board member's power, and what isn't within a board member's power?
So you're talking about the
Like an elected board member.
so our board of trustees meetings are one opportunity every month, although some districts might meet twice a month to do our business. It's everything that has to do with the business of the district and the college that we're representing, colleges. So the LA Community College District has 9 colleges. We get together as a board in public because we're bound by the Brown Act, and I think you guys follow Brown Act also, that all of the public's business, we're representing the public, must be done in public. And so our board meetings, that's an opportunity for us to vote on contracts for supplies or services, address anything that has to do with real estate or legal issues, approve any new curriculum or any changes to curriculum, also to do personnel matters. So whether that's approving positions, approving new hires, uh, dealing with things that are unpleasant like suspensions, discipline, uh, termination, any of those kinds of issues. So it's our one opportunity to really do the business that we're supposed to do for the seats that we hold in public. We also approve the budget every year. We hold a budget hearing. Um, a lot of us have construction projects on campus. We've passed bonds. How many of you know if your district has passed a bond to do? Yeah. So we do all of that business at our regular board meetings. We also approve collective bargaining agreements. So when our faculty and staff come to us, we have that on our board agendas. And that's basically what a board member does at a board meeting.
Mhm.
And then for the student trustee,
my kind of experience with what they are able to do, what they're not able to do. My chancellor said that they kind of work for the campuses. So our specific district represents 9 campuses. I know some of you guys are individually. So when they approve budget and things of that matter, they approve it, but the way that the campuses spend it is based on their committees and the presidents. So when it comes to certain budget things and you're like, oh, well, why isn't this money getting dispersed here and there? You kind of want to talk to your president, and there's a ladder of power that you go to before you go to the trustees because they're kind of like the ultimate overseers, but you want to speak to your campus directors first. And that's kind of what I learned within what their power is. I was kind of confused about that as well. I'm like, maybe they're like official, so they are, but it's like it's government work oversee, they oversee and like okay, you go over there and tell them, hey, they need to pick up this slack here and there. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So we have students and elected members. Are there any other representatives that regularly attend Board of Trustees meetings?
that's a good question, and I'm going to actually ask the audience also. So in LACCD, we have something called the resource table. So all of our constituency groups, that would be the heads of our faculty union, academic senate. We have 6 collective bargaining groups actually representing 6 different constituencies. We also have we used to have this, you represent us on the board, but we also could have anybody from student government come and sit at the resource table. And that's an opportunity for those groups to speak directly to the board before we get to public comment. And so they're allowed to like give their updates of what's happening uh, in their particular areas. They can make requests of the board. Obviously, we can't answer them at a board meeting. We're going to get to that later. They do not sit on the dais with us. So on the dais is just the board members, whether it's your 5 board members or 7 elected board members, the student trustee, and our chancellor. Other districts might do it differently. There might be some districts that allow like their academic senate president and faculty union to sit on the dais. Some districts have more than one student trustee. Does anybody in here have more than one elected student trustee? And you were Contra Costa? Is that where you were from? Oh, Chabot. Okay. How many do you have? Do you have 2? Oh, wow. And how does that work? Do they both sit on the dais during board meetings? Okay, great. Anybody else have more than one elected student trustee? Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that. We had one of your one of your student leaders was a trustee on the community college league board a couple years ago. Yeah, Elijah. I don't know if you remember. Okay, so you have 2 also then. And what campus are you representing? Okay, great. So that would be another group that has a voice. They're not doing the public's business, but they have a voice that's not bound by the timekeeping rules that we have for public comment. And then we also have our college presidents. So we have 9 college presidents. And when you're in a multi-campus district, it's a little bit different the way your board meetings are run. And so all 9 campus presidents have an opportunity to speak to the board prior to public comment as well. So that's an answer to your question of who sits on the board.
And then in terms of like you mentioned that you're, doing the public's business, the college's business, it does seem like a really large role. In terms of the agenda, I know you all have public agendas. How do you get an item on that agenda? Is there an avenue for students to be involved in those conversations?
So by law, there is an avenue for students to be involved in terms of placing something on the agenda. I learned when I was board president during COVID, that the public actually has a right to place an item on your board agenda. I mean, there's a process that they need to go through, but the public has a right to place an item on your board agenda. The board agenda really is there for us to do our business. So most of the agenda items go onto a consent calendar, and they're routine items. They're change orders, they're approvals, like I said, for things that we need to buy, instructional supplies and materials, and things that make the college run. But from time to time, we'll have a controversial item that somebody wants to place on our board agenda. We also put resolutions. Does anybody else during their board meetings have resolutions that are on their board agendas? Okay, great. Like, give me an example. What kind of resolutions? Right. So we do that as well in the LA Community College District, and I'm glad to hear that other districts do that. So what we'll do, sometimes a student group or a faculty group or academic senate will feel really strongly about something. They will first pass a resolution, and then we as a board can adopt that resolution and put it on our board agenda as a board resolution as well. And then obviously we want to invite people to speak publicly about the resolutions. You can ask questions. We want this to be interactive. Is that what you mean like an action item? So let's say there was something that you had on your ASU agenda, and that it was an item of importance to your organization or to all students. You would work with the board president. You'd probably contact the chancellor and the board president to get that item placed on the agenda. It doesn't happen that often that a student group or that an outside person will want to place something on the board agenda. As a matter of fact, agenda setting is done with all of our, vice chancellors and department heads that have to put things that by law need to go to the board before you can do anything. So before we can pay out contracts, before anybody can travel. Those kinds of things have to be approved by the board. So usually it's routine items. Not all board members are involved. Like I see the agenda at the same time as the public, actually, 72 hours before our board meeting. I could have access to see a draft agenda if I was concerned about something, but for the most part, we don't see the agenda until the public sees the agenda. But if there's something pressing that you want to make sure is taken up by the board, you can absolutely contact, or your organization can contact the board president and the chancellor and make sure it's put on the agenda.
Maybe like public security, or it has to be something severe.
Do something severe because it could be something that you want as an agenda item, maybe not for action, but just an information item. Let's just say you wanted to come and make a presentation to the board about, but you didn't want to do it during public comment because you wanted a little bit more time. You could request to have that presentation put on, and sometimes we do presentations before, if we're not going to take action, we do presentations before we actually get into the public agenda. By the way, here's a question for you. Can you have a presentation on something where you're going to take action before the public has a chance to weigh in on it? Does anybody know the answer to that? So we're not allowed to do any business. If we're going to take action on an item, before we can hear that item, we need to allow the public to make public comment. So that's another really important aspect of our board meetings, is that we're not allowed to do any business until the public has had an opportunity to weigh in on the agenda. That's why the agenda is posted 72 hours ahead of time. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah.
I think Alexi had comments too.
Go ahead. So Rip, stand up for a second so I can see you. Okay. So you had a student trustee. Okay. Your student trustee or the elected trustee. So you have some friction on your elected board. Your elected board members don't agree on something. And so an elected board member went to and made public comment, his or herself. Yeah, I would never do that as an elected board member, because the power that we have is that we can speak from the dais. Now, you can't just speak randomly on any item, by the way. You have to only speak to the items that are on your agenda. The board cannot discuss an item that has not been agendized. So number one was the item agendized. Okay, it was agendized. Okay. That board member should not go down and speak as a member of the public, because then their time is limited. But as board members, we have the power to speak from the dais on any item. If the board president didn't call on that board member, then you should have a parliamentarian, whether that's someone from the board or your legal counsel, to be able to sort of intervene and say, no, this person needs to be able to have their time to make comment on this particular item. What happened? What was the resolution? Are you the student trustee? You're a student. Okay. You can organize the students that want to support this particular board member or this particular issue and speak individually at public comment to support that board member or the board member's issue. From time to time, there are boards that don't get along. I mean, I've been on this board has been a different board in the past, and we had a board member who was a lot of trouble, and the students did rally and make public comment every chance they got. to call this particular board member out. And I know, Paul, you know who the board member is, but not everyone knows who the board. Yeah, it's not always, we try to be professional, but honestly, whatever you're seeing in the public, whatever you see right now in Washington D.C., it happens in our boardrooms too. We don't always get along, but the way you can support that board member and support your student trustee is to get up and make public comment. You can also write letters to the board, by the way. So that's why it's really important that you get to know who is your elected board, and and why did they run, and what is their motive? Are they truly there to serve the public and to serve students? Are they looking to jump into higher office? Um, you know, why are they running, and what is their day job? Because for most of us, this is public service. We all work. I mean, there are some board members that are retired or maybe don't have a job because they're not working, but most of us have something else that we do full time and that we feel strongly about supporting our community college districts, and that's why we ran for the board. And so to find out maybe, what everybody's motivation is and why they ran, who they are as people, and what things are important to them is also a good thing that you can do to try to support that board.
Just kind of going back to what you said about what kind of items you want to see in the agenda. Some students tend to be about like the water bottle stations just being like so monthly, and that's something as simple as infrastructure, but it also comes into play with budget. So you do want to have that as an agenda item because that's a significant change in campuses. And then going back to kind of like you said there, you have to keep in mind that the process is meant for kind of like people having different opinions. People are gonna have different opinions, and it actually goes against the to try to like make people like vote the same that you are. So this difference and this like argument is actually good, so that we can actually see what the people truly want. But then you get to see what board member supports what and what their priorities are. Do they actually present student needs? So it's just good to kind of see it. So yeah, they may not agree with the board member. I've had times where my board members haven't agreed with what my board member here is saying, and I'm like, what? This is such a good idea, but there's reason and there's a time and there's a process for things disagree. So you just kind of have to understand.
Yeah.
Adding on to, for example, the filling stations that you mentioned, wouldn't we have to go by like hierarchy? Like, for example, there's facilities food.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we have to go through them? And now if that doesn't get filling station, then we will move on. You can't just go straight.
Right. And that's what I always say. You can go straight to the student trustee anytime. That's why you have a student trustee. Go straight to your student trustee for all those kinds of issues. You can do that, but I wouldn't come straight to the board if it's something that hasn't gone through a process. If you have a complaint, especially with complaints, a lot of times students come straight to the board. Actually, not so much students. Faculty and staff come straight to the board with complaints, but they haven't gone through the actual process. They haven't talked to their facilities director. They haven't talked to the campus vice president or president. So I would say make sure you go through the proper channels first. The filling station is a really, I've been meeting with students since I got on the board about filling stations on our campuses. The other thing is, in case you haven't noticed, it takes a long time to get things done. So you might start something now and, especially like with filling stations, it takes a while. For students that are the student trustee, raise your hand if you're the student trustee. Do you all have an advisory vote? Okay. When does the clerk call on you for your vote? You get to cast your vote first? Okay. Doesn't go in alphabetical order then? Do you all sit in the same seats every time? Okay, so as a student, when are you called on? Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. Oh, okay. When do they call on you? It doesn't matter.
Which is kind of because as soon as that it's supposed to influence what they are voting on, so you should go first. And then kind of going back to your question, as far as like a lot of students want to reinvent the wheel, but you have to understand that we're not reinventing it, we're enhancing it. And so a lot of your great ideas, like she's mentioned, have been on the board for so long. So you definitely want to go through your committees first just to see what the timeline is on it. Because you have to understand, and people come at it in a negative way, but be positive. Like, okay, this might take 2 years. Okay, that's fine. In 2 years, the next generation will have it, and that's guidance. And just kind of students just want to know when is it. So if you can go through your committees, you can. If they're not willing to give you, then you just use all your resources. So school gives you.
So if that would happen, what's the procedure? So what happens?
As student trustee, I'm on one campus, but I ASG residents, and so they come to me with just their remarks and like opinions, and I meet with the board members every month, and then I give my opinion there. So if it kind of misses that timeline, it's okay. You can go to the comments. There's always a chance where you can have your voice heard. It doesn't necessarily. There's no timeline. There's no deadline. There's no. Let's do it. As soon as you get an idea, who can I go talk to? And you just
Yeah.
So for it's interesting for state tech issue. So for college, for district college, for college district, you represent college. So who reports to you? Does it make sense? This the student reps report out. So position rotates. So the year that so like last year, the student rep. But this year, I'm just see. So then all the other colleges get live.
Wow, interesting.
Get mentioned president. So are they essentially the student rep or?
yeah. I want to say it's probably just different titles, but yeah, our ASU presidents report to me, and then sometimes they even invite their treasurer. Anyone is welcome to the SAC meeting. And I recommend that
Explain what SAC meeting is.
oh sorry, Student Assembly Committee,
Student Affairs Committee.
Student Affairs Committee.
It's okay.
What that because I don't know if you guys are multi-campus, but um nevertheless, even if you aren't, someone is reporting what's happening because as a student trustee, you need the support from your ASU members because you are gonna know what's going on and they're gonna have different ideas than you. So you're not gonna. One thing that my advisor told me that I think was the best advice ever was that your ideas might not be what the students agree, even though you're like this is gonna be good, everyone should do it. Like they're not gonna agree with that. What is needed now? So you always want to get student life reports, even that if that's just from someone who isn't ASG want to get as much report. And that's kind of a hassle that I have too. Kind of like, how do I collect this information in a way that what is needed? And I'm still working on it. So,
No, go ahead.
Space problem a lot. You don't get service. And I reach out. Just emails saving them. And it makes me feel like I'm a bad trustee because I'm not representing them well. It's like what would you suggest?
I definitely feel that because for us, in order to even hold our student affairs committees, we need 5 members there. So when we don't have and it's like, oh, it's kind of frustrating. But as my chancellor told me in advice, he just said you don't want to force people. You want to encourage them. You want to kind of like, why should I attend this meeting? And you have to also remember they're students just like you. Your district does a good job of email bombing, so they kind of get like these ideas out to everyone. We have 80, 90 emails a day. It's gonna be regular that you're not gonna see an email. So let's do something a little bit more casual. Like let me text you. If you have social media, like, hey, what's good? Like this. Have a hybrid option. I know that kind of goes against. It doesn't go against the Brown Act. It's a little bit more complicated because there's certain regulations when you hold the meetings online. But just having that area in that room so where it's convenient for people, that's gonna be your best. But also don't get too down. And another thing, I kind of go to the president. Hey, I haven't seen your student, your president at our meeting for like 6 months now. So where are they at? Kind of just doing your job there. Because yeah, like you said, we can't really do it that way. We're not able to go to campus. The campus are spread out. So just doing the best to just keep that connection, even if it's like coming up with a group chat, but you with that, goes against Brown Act, but like I said, casual conversation, not too formal, make it comfortable for people.
How many of you know the legislative priorities of your district and your board? Sounds like you have a really good communicative district and board, right? Especially where? Okay, that's great. If you don't know your legislative priorities and you don't know what the district is looking toward for next year or for the future, you really need to get to know your board. I want everyone to go back, or even tonight, Google your district, go online and find out who your board members are and read their bios. Really important. And then find a board member that has similar values to you and make an appointment to have coffee. You know, we love to hear from students. We love when students reach out to us. It's hard for us to reach out to students because we don't know who all the students are. And I met students today that didn't even know I existed. So that's why I asked the question, do you know who your board members are? Really important. Really important to know. Uh, I'm really proud that in the LA Community College District, we have a board that is probably the most progressive board that is ever. Like, we have not had this many board members. We might not all like each other. We might not all get along. I would maybe not choose them to be my friends. However, and I can say that publicly, and they would probably say that as well. When it comes to our priorities, when it comes to our legislative agenda, when it comes to students, student housing, basic needs, dual enrollment, all the things that matter, all the things to lift people out of poverty and make sure that they're getting an education and getting good jobs, we all agree on. So that makes it a lot easier when we know that our values are aligned. And so look at your board members, see who they are, see what they do in their day jobs for a living, and see who you feel like you could connect with. Yeah.
Say, those who don't know who I am, Atkins, I'm the Region 7 treasurer. Also, I'm a former board member of Compton College from 1999 2000. Thinking back what you said is all true, and also I am a current student at LA Southwest College, like we mentioned about the basic needs. We have our student trustee been to my campus, and she was very impressed that we have a basic need program that we have on our campus, and that's including like we have our fully stocked tank that has everything from box of cereal to canned food, microwave food, drinks, and everything. The main thing is I totally support the Los Angeles Community College board member, including our new elected student trustee. And from one trustee to another, you're doing a wonderful job. And I'm looking forward for you and any board members to come to LA Southwest College. You know, I'm going to take a tour and let everybody know that we are in the process of building a two-story new student center on our campus. And we will hope to have it open by the time the new school year comes. So, to clear everything, it's a great honor for me to be a part of the Los Angeles Community College district. And I want to, if you guys have a chance to come and visit. By the way, I'm the senator of all the classes in our curriculum for the student topic. Thank you to me.
Love that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so he's one of our representatives at Southwest, and that they're a great school to just like have an example. They were able to get a $1,000 donation from Food for Less for their school pantry, where any student, whether it doesn't matter if you're EOPS involved or anything, any student can go and get food from it. So that is a great example because I can go and implement that on other campuses. So that's just another idea of like how you can get resources from anyone. It doesn't matter who it is on your campus. It could be the mascot, the sports, anyone, and they'll give you good ideas and good network. So network on your campus.
All right. I just wanted to clarify something from earlier when you had mentioned who has an advisory vote and if you vote first or not. So AB 1541 by Assembly Member Mike Fong sponsored by SSCCC, passed this year, will be enacted into law January 1st. So starting January 1st, your board should do this. But essentially, if you do not have an advisory vote, you are now required to have an advisory vote by law. You're also required to vote first by law. So if you do not vote first, you should. I will send you the link to that new ed code, and you should be voting first. So FYI to all the student trustees out there. All right. I think we really covered a lot of content. Kind of want to go to some additional scenarios because those seem to be the most relevant to everybody here. But um, let's think about, like, the crowd is full of student trustees, but also the crowd is full of just students that aren't student trustees. So I would recommend, right, when you're answering your questions, think about how can a student also participate in this process. Maybe understanding that they want to, work with their student government or their student trustee, but also maybe they just want to go themselves. So question here is, let's say in this scenario, a new bill is introduced. We're talking about basic needs. There's a bill regarding basic needs that is extremely important, and this student leader wants their college to support this bill. What are the steps that student leader can take through the board of trustees in order to garner support for this bill that is extremely important in the perspective of the student?
In the perspective of a student, if I have a bill that I want to put to my board of trustees, as a student who has no ASG involvement, I would go to the ASG meeting first, speak at public comment, see how your ASG members feel about it. After your ASG members, collect an idea or assign how they want to approach this, I would then go with your ASG members to the board meeting and speak there. Once you have a public comment there, don't just start by public comment. Send an email out. The chancellor works very close with the board members, so I would say speak to your chancellor, but also just send a simple email. If you already made your presentation the board meeting, then you just want to follow up with an email so that you kind of, like I said, like a timeline of where their support is at. Are they going to mention this at the next board meeting? Is this going to be an information item, an agenda item? Figure that out. One of them will know. There's not a specific one, and like I mentioned, they're all a part of different committees, so they have different responsibilities, and they're gonna be probably backed up. But you're just gonna want to go to all of them to see who will give you the fastest response in connection to the person that has it. That's just kind of how I go about what.
Again, I love hearing from students. Board members like to hear from students. If you're advocating for something, that's great. Like we can help you with that. We can respond to you individually. We can ask you to provide us with more information. We can take you with us on advocacy visits. It gets a little dicey if students are advocating for something that the board hasn't identified as a priority, which is why when Alexi says bring it to your student government and go through the channels, that's so that you can get a broader base of support from other students first before you bring it to the board. But generally, if you have an idea or if you want to support a piece of legislation that maybe isn't on our radar, because that's happened before too, you can definitely work through the channels and come to make a presentation to the board. Yeah.
Let's hypothetically that this would be jurisdiction. Would we go for the kind of new resolution to SC, or presenting it to trustee, preparing it for that?
It depends what you're asking for. So if it's something broad statewide, I know SSCCC does a lot of advocacy. If it's something that's maybe just yeah, it might be just something for you. It might be like, hey, our students don't have childcare at ELA, and we want to advocate for, more support for our parenting students to participate in student government, and they need. I mean, it could be small.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be big statewide issues that you want to advocate for. Yeah, funding can be a possibility, but again, if it's funding, sometimes you really need to go through your campus. If it's legislation, like student trustees and having an advisory vote, I mean, that was a big issue. So in LACCD, we've always given our student trustee an advisory vote. That was an easy one for us to get on board. But let's just say we were a district where we didn't have advisory votes or motions or seconds for our student trustee. That would be something that that you would want to garner a lot of support for and say, look, statewide, ASCCC is advocating for this. We would like LACCD to be on record supporting students but you would want to work through your student organizations first before bringing it through the board. Yeah.
So then on that same front, so it seems like you just outlined how to be an effective advocate.
Yes.
Are there specific things that students should avoid during their advocacy path to ensure that they are effective and to not turn off a potential change in policy?
It's kind of
That's
just
a
like
good
a homework
question.
assignment, I would say. Like when you before you turn in an essay or a presentation, you want to have your references, you want to have your facts, you want to make sure that everything that you're saying is true and it's not just something that you just pulled off of emotion. Don't speak off emotion, speak off of the facts and what's really happening. And if you need the data, each of your campuses should have like an economic data center where they literally have list of population or enrollment, and so you will have more of a better idea of okay, who is it actually affecting, and you sound smart when you're actually saying it because you don't want to speak off emotion. Sometimes like we'll have people comment, get what like they're so emotional about something, but because they're too emotional, it's like I'm gonna miss the point of what you were trying to make. So be specific to the point, and like and she said, present a resolution and a resolution that has facts to say this is gonna work. I think would be the best way. It's kind of hard, but so our homework assignments is like it's gonna take work. It's not gonna be easy.
I mean, look, students are human too, and we've had students that come before the board, and sometimes students are frustrated and angry, and just try to remember that you want to present yourself in the best possible way so that you're taken seriously and garnering respect. That doesn't mean that you can't criticize. Absolutely, public comment is all about the public has a right, students have a right to criticize elected officials and the job that they're doing if they're not doing what you consider to be an adequate job, and that's okay. But you just need to remember that if you're trying to garner support, figure out the best way to get that support.
Yeah, and I would say like be kind of like empathetic or sympathetic, but like even all you now that are in your positions, you kind of see how difficult it is to get things done. So just understand that they have a lot on their plate. Like it's gonna take time, and you might be frustrated, but it will happen if you just continue to be passionate.
I mean, your whole conference is about advocacy, and I'm sure you've had a session about how to approach the legislature because we've had some kind of experiences. Sometimes people get very heated when in a legislative office when someone's not agreeing with you, and so just keep that in mind also. That sometimes it's easier to get what you want if you take a little bit longer, a little more time, even though you're frustrated.
Right. Another scenario, and think of it from, student perspective. So I feel like the board of trustees on my campus is unapproachable. I feel like maybe they don't reflect the values of the students. Um, However, I'm in a position where I'm a student leader and I still want to work with them in some way. How would I navigate that situation?
Does anybody have that situation going on, by the way? I'm just very curious. Okay. Huh? Okay. So it's tuned out.
Yeah, they're like, what? Okay. I feel like the board of trustees on my campus are unapproachable. How can I still work with them to get my priorities the side? Oh, well, we got one in the
Well,
back.
might. Yeah. Oh. Oh. And all we're saying here is go for channel. Have you gotten action when you reach out to the chancellor? Okay, so this is a very good example, like not to tell you to go to speak in front of your board of trustees, but when you've tried to take action, this is really important. Through the proper channels, which it sounds like you have, it is absolutely appropriate. You can come as an individual student and speak in public comment. Now, what we do in LA is we have public comment on agenda items only at the beginning of the meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, we have public comment on anything that the public wants to bring to us. So I would, of course, talk to other students to see if they've had the same experience. because coming in numbers is always better. There are times that we just hear something for the first time because a student came to the board and actually it turned out to be, you know, a pretty legitimate issue that the board wanted to make sure got taken care of. So there's something different about the board turning to your chancellor or your president and saying, "Oh, we just heard from 6 students. Chancellor, please follow up," and let the board know what the resolution is after you. And by the way, this is a quiz. Are we allowed to answer questions from the public when the public comes and makes public comment? Does anybody know? Right. So tell all your fellow students, because sometimes students get really frustrated when they come and speak to the board and they feel like we're unapproachable because we haven't been able to answer them while we're on the dais. All we can do is ask our chancellor to please look into it and get back to that person. Yes.
What's up, Mauricia? The EVP of NSU US. So what we do personally use meetings is we give a point of information before they speak during public forum. I do this within the ICC meetings, the chair, and then we also do that as aides, letting them know that they may speak on anything in their life. Well, obviously the agenda item, and then we ask them that they can remain later for questions, but we just spit about them. And that creates like this confusion.
Yep.
So sometimes they just come in.
And again, I want to go back to Nune's original question was if you're trying to advocate for something that you know is good for students, it's a piece of legislation, but there's a board member that just might not agree with you, try to set up coffee with that board member. Try to set up a meeting with that individual board member. Yeah. And if they say no, that's a problem.
Little long story. So recently, my
It's recording. Careful.
so issue with deans of business because they want to remove her from the department, place her in student services, and then disorganize the entire. A bunch of staff and faculty are exhausted on this, they're frustrated, and normally I know it's a little bad to say this, but student trustee position is seen as like a little flat position. In all honesty, they expect them to just come and vote yes on everything and just give a little report on the student government.
Yep. Yeah. It's easier. Yeah.
And the problem with that is when the student trustee speaks up, all hell breaks loose because then they're like, oh, they're speaking on something that's a little recording. And so spoke up about why they're implementing the standard when there's no actual organizational structure after the implementation is done. And so I spoke on that during the board report or during the actual discussion and deliberation. And all staff faculty applauded. They were crazy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Then clearly I'm members of my board, but our secretaries, which is our chancellor, our superintendent, he was not happy. And clearly neither were the administrators, the assistant superintendents. And so now because of that, I've been kind of sort of outcasted from my board because of me speaking up for something that I found would impact the students that were all being, changed and, rationed out because of the change rights. And so because of that, I've been trying to speak up more often so that way they can make sure that I'm not just here for a glance, I'm not here to actually listen and keep what I believe is right. Yeah. And no matter what, I still feel that lack of incentive because of the fact that the board president kind of follows whatever the superintendent. And even right now, as it is, we just had a vote of no confidence for one of the assistant superintendents, and they removed her last week. And now they want to remove the president of college.
What district are you?
Southwestern College.
Southwestern. Wow.
So all that little tea that's been percolating, it's getting a little.
Yeah. I would say because you're limited in your, so I'm going to just speak to the student trustees now, because you're sort of limited in your scope of responsibilities, you are not elected by the public, you're elected by your peers. So you're not really representing the public, you're representing the students. You're not privy to information about personnel, and you probably are not attending closed sessions. So sometimes there are reasons for what the district is doing. I'm not saying that you're wrong in questioning it. You can question it. But there's a piece of that puzzle that a lot of times is missing when students speak up about, especially when it has to do with operations.
And it makes me think I gained that information. See,
Oh, yeah.
When I
Got it.
To the board, the president, well, not the president,
yeah,
is upset because
because they gave you information that.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's information that should be made public because of going through the SEC.
Okay.
So the fact that trustees don't attend the SEC to hear any information, it just received in closed session, the student trustees about.
Exactly. That's what my whole point. And a lot of times, trustees are not involved in the operations of the colleges or the district whatsoever. That is not our job. So we do have to trust what human resources brings us in closed session, what the chancellor brings us in closed session, and we don't question like reorgs and all because that is really not our job. Our job is we are the fiscal agents for that district, and we need to make sure that the curriculum and the offerings and the courses are in line with what's relevant and what's going to help our students and follows state law.
It's the key.
Okay.
So this came because that they wanted to remove the dean of ISS. They broke board policy 2510, so they did not confide or ask any other department within staff and faculty in regards to the action, and that's why the academic senate voted
For no
to
comment.
have
Yeah.
conference and remove.
Oh wow. And it's fine if students want to align with the academic senate and take a vote. You're allowed to do that. Interesting.
Then there's a question.
Yeah.
Let me read that back here. How about student empowerment?
Yes.
Kind of piggybacking on what you say in regards that the board of trustees. But sometimes, it's not rushed as a student. We gotta let it stay in there.
Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly.
But like,
No, that's a really good point. I mean, I try to stay in my lane. There are times that it's hard if a student comes and, I might agree with you. I might absolutely agree with you that reorg shouldn't have happened, but it was brought to me as a board member, probably in closed session. It was, maybe not, but yeah.
I was just gonna say like, yeah, stay in your lane, but also like try to take advantage to not stay in your lane sometimes. Because like when it comes to our faculty members, I'm not, a part of their workforce or anything like that. But faculty does affect students. Like without them, we don't have anything. So when it comes to certain decisions that impact them, I do work close. I think I work with like the committee chair, President James. And we talk about certain things, and he's a very big advocate for students. And just as you said, like, oh, our board broke policy. Well, speak to your attorney at the district. Like, your attorney at the district, she has some useful information. Like, that attorney that sits at the board meeting, you want to talk to them. Like, you say, how are they supposed to do this, and that, the other? Because this is what's been happening. Like, how can I take a legal point of view from this? Because once it comes to a legal point, they can't tell you no or, like, out you out. It's legally that they have to abide by what you're asking. And, but like I said, like legalness isn't always fair in people, but like they'll have the user because at the end of the day we have policy. So if it's not following policy, then that's when like okay, this is completely unfair. And then if you want to see policy change, then state legislation is where you go next.
Right. I think that kind of answered the next scenario we had.
The one about the faculty.
Yeah. Do you want?
So let me ask you, do you have, I know it happens to you a lot probably, but do faculty ever approach you to come to the board and speak on a particular issue? And you might not have all the information, but they give you a script and they're like, yeah, we need you to advocate for this. How do you guys handle that?
Yeah.
I say
You say no? How do you handle it? Yeah, or do they come to your student group and say, can you find 10 students to come and speak on this issue at a board? They don't do that. But do they? Yeah.
approaches to government. In my role, I act as the liaison between the district itself and our organization structure and our student government, and I automatically just draw them away. So there isn't really much of a drawback from the student government to show that they're leaning towards something. I have no.
Yeah. And I would say if like you're not passionate about what's presented to you, then and you spoke to your students and they're also not passionate, then don't represent it like that. Like you say, stay in your lane, but with limits. Like, okay, I want this is gonna affect because I am gonna present it because I also feel you in that part.
And there are times when it can be very effective. I'm saying, when students and faculty come together and actually agree on an issue that they want to see change or, advocate for, that can be an effective tool. In LACCD, we have a student internship program with the Faculty Guild. So students actually get paid to be interns, and they learn about advocacy, especially in the context of labor unions. It's a really great program. And you were going to say something. Oh, okay. Okay. I would say as long as the student feels comfortable and the student has all the information, because there are times when it's not quite as organized and a faculty member will try to have students come and speak, but the student might not know the scope of the entire issue, which is why when our interns come and speak, we know that they've been educated and they fully understand both sides of an issue. So that would be my only concern. And so you as a student trustee would probably be able to like help with the students, and so that they know what they're advocating for or advocating against. I mean, I know that AB 705 and AB 1705 was a hot issue for a while, and we had students speaking on both sides of, do we want to continue with classes that are not transferable in math and some remediation, and a lot of students felt strongly on one hand, and then there were students that felt strongly the other way. So I would just make sure that students understand both sides of the issue.
Can I add something to that really quickly? I would say, like, just I think it's very important to understand, like, if someone's approaching you about something and this is the first time that they've spoken to, really think about how is this within their interests, right? If you have a faculty group, like, who do they report to? They're reporting to the faculty, right? The academic senate, who are they reporting to? Even, look at the conference schedule. Who is organizing this session? Who do they report to? And why is my voice as a student so important to them? Because unfortunately, there are a lot of scenarios where, especially when you're coming in as a new student leader, folks will be like, well, I need to grab them to advocate for my issue because their voices will actually be listened to and mine likely will not. So I just think, like, it's very important to be an informed advocate, to really think about the people around you, especially like within the education space. We are all working together, but we are working separately at the same time. So I just think, very important to be aware of that. And also, by doing that, it makes you a stronger advocate because you're able to leverage those relationships and you're able to understand, what do people want from me, and also, what can I offer them, and what can they offer me? Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make you, I think, the strongest advocate. Cool.
And I would say for those who are not student trustees, get involved. Start advocating on your campus and
Yeah.
with your boards. Yeah.
All right.
Huh?
If you want.
I'm
Yeah,
fine.
I think that's, yeah, I think that's, yeah.
I was thinking.
So that's it, and then we can stay. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Yes, because you're a student trustee.
Can we do what?
That's a good idea. A photo with all the students.
Was it? Was it?
Andy from Boston Center College, student life instructor.
Oh my gosh, it's so great that you're here.
Yeah,
Good.
Students are trustees here.
Oh,
I
good.
just appreciate what you're saying because I have questions and some even.
Yeah, you probably learned
even
some too.
Is it
They might have left.
Nune.
Nuna.
Nune?
Yes.
Nuna?
Nuna, yes.
Nune. So curious. Earlier, somebody said like trustees sit on committees.
So so in a larger district,
Okay.
we have board committees.
Board. Okay.
They're not
And then
they're not college committees.
the handbook says
Yeah, no.
the trustees shouldn't be on.
No, we're not. We have
daily like
no.
college
Oh, yeah.
activities.
No, we don't.
So what if
We
yeah. So what if a trustee is sitting on a board that's making vote that ends up at the board meeting?
I don't think they're allowed to be on shared governance.
we're not allowed to be on committees. Okay,
Not just a task force, but then the
Like, it's something happening.
decision made it.
give me a specific give me a specific example.
They recognize.
No, but I'm like because that might be okay.
You don't want to hot mic. Can we stop screening this?